Hello and welcome to the Metroidvania podcast. My name is Professor Q.
And this is Cauldrath from the Metroidvania subreddit and Discord.
Hi, I'm Master. I'm also from there.
And these people, their skin is the same color as the sand. That seems unsafe.
Well, it seems like good camouflage.
It would be great camouflage if they weren't so, cel-shaded.
They do look extremely shiny.
These shiny people. Oh, is that do you want to introduce the game?
I guess. So this is Clash at Demon Head. It's an old NES game. As many of you know, I'm the one who came up with the idea of calling things crest-likes, and people have told me that this is a crest-like before Demon's Crest, so it should have been called Clash-likes, or I guess maybe Demon-likes, because both of those games had Demon in the name.
Oh, maybe. I like Crest-like more. It sounds better. It's like Metroidvania versus Castle Ride. Castle Ride just sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Crest-like is nice and concise.
Well, Clash-like is also concise.
I do like Clash-like, or Demon Clashes. That was one of the ones that came up during that discussion. I kind of liked.
Oh yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, Demon Clash just sounds cool. Also, who's shooting these missiles at this poor kid?
Hey, this guy's like I don't know, a soldier or something like that.
Oh, is he actually a soldier? Like, what was he doing on the beach?
Like, he was hanging out with his girlfriend, and then he got called up to go do a mission.
So he just kind of rolled off the beach and just got missiles fired at him? Is that...
Yeah, I guess the beach is where he came from. So yeah, the way this game works is kind of weird. Like, every time you reach the edge of a screen, it takes you back to the map, and then you have to choose a direction. Like, you just press B until you have the direction you want selected, and then press A and go that way.
It looked like your brain went exactly where my brain went. You tried to jump on that cloud just there. I would have not thought to jump in that water. That water looks like death to me.
I thought it was going to be death, but there's literally nowhere else to go. So
sometimes that's how it has to be.
Yep.
Oh gosh, what was it? It was Hollow Knight that was playing that had a thing where it tutorialized. Was it pogo jumping on the spikes or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, like you were playing it, and the only way you could get through that area was by pogo jumping.
This is an ambitious map, I have to say. Did this get a US release?
I think so.
I guess you would have to be playing some translation.
By the way, the stream says you're playing Hollow Knight.
Oh great, not again. I've been having a long day, guys.
Maybe Q is playing Hollow Knight right now while I'm playing Clash at Demon Head.
I really need to just Clash of Demon Head or Clash at Demon Head. There it is. I found it.
Okay.
Let's see. Sorry about the typing.
It adds drama.
I really just need to change that after I'm done streaming on Saturdays, because every Wednesday this happens every time I get home from work, and there's the turbulence of getting home from work that I just forget to change it. I apologize to everyone who thought this was Hollow Knight. I hope nobody was confused that it wasn't Hollow Knight when she turned it on. What I think is interesting is that little blue line on the left side of the screen that happens with a lot of emulated NES games. Somebody explained why that happened. Another interesting thing I found out about Super Nintendo games probably a couple of years ago was that they actually aren't native 4x3 on the hardware, and they only looked 4x3 because of the way it was displayed on CRTs. Like, it gets stretched horizontally, and normally it's like 8x... I don't remember what it is. It's narrower than 4x3.
So apparently the water does kill you, but it kills you slowly.
Ah.
I was extremely confused as to how I died there.
Isn't it great when you don't know how you died? It could be that the water is cold in this area.
Could be.
Oh no, you're going too deep is what's happening. Well, interesting. So, I mean, this is obviously isn't a Let's Play week. This is a discussion week.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce us back into where we were, or what we're looking at?
Oh, yeah. So, this is we're looking at the Google document for the video that I'm planning on doing about the definition of a Metroidvania. I'll go ahead and post that in the stream chat.
Yeah, good. So if anybody wants to follow along. This was also linked on the video we did a couple of weeks ago, I think. I think it was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it was 3.
Maybe it was a month ago. It was before
It's a number of weeks ago.
the boss rant stream that we did.
Yeah. So yeah, the point that we reached in this, we did number 5, explain sequence breaking. So now we are on 6, explain guided non-linearity.
So that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's kind of like Phaserment's baby. Phaserment's mod on the subreddit and Discord, and he actually has a entry on our Metroidvania subreddit wiki about guided non-linearity, which I linked in the document. But I might as well just read that.
Sure.
So, guided non-linearity manifests itself when a game affords the player ample room for autonomous exploration within the parts of the map that are currently available based on the player's current upgrades or abilities. For the majority of the game, there should be more than one way to make progress, meaning that the player should not unlock new areas by means of upgrade acquisition in a linear fashion. It is the progression, i.e. gaining access to new parts of the map, that is key here, as opposed to the physical non-linearity of the hallways or rooms themselves within areas that are accessible at the same point in time. Moreover, even though the acquisition of power-ups should be non-linear, it will realistically follow some sort of loose sequence. The acquisition of one power-up may be predicated on the possession of another, hence creating a sequential hierarchy. This style of level design creates a compelling balance between non-linear gameplay and a guided form of game design. As Krasta mentioned, in the other article linked in the document,
So
this allows
who is the person that wrote this article? Was it Jeremy Parrish or?
This is Phaserman.
Oh, did Phaser Bin write that article?
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. I actually did not know that he was the author of that.
Yeah, this is on our Metroidvania wiki. So yeah, as Preston mentioned, this allows the designer to incorporate a good difficulty curve into the game, as well as fit a narrative within a not-linear structure. In other words, the game designer can carefully tailor the experience in this way, while leaving ample room for the player to feel autonomous in his or her exploration and progression.
So basically, the short version of that is that you feel like, or that doesn't tell you where to go, but it only provides you a few options to prevent you from just wandering off anywhere.
And because they do have, you are limited in the areas that you can go based on that hierarchy, they can tailor the experience to have like a difficulty curve.
How's it going on Unknown V2? Right. Let me think. Like looking at like Super Metroid as an example, they kind of have a progression of what order you fight the bosses in, but I don't know if there's necessarily a narrative that goes along with the order you fight them in, except for the part where Ridley is clearly supposed to be the last one you fight, because that's when you finally find the shattered Metroid case.
Right.
We're all doing very well in OB2. But definitely there are other Metroidvanias that take this in a different direction where the narrative is affected by that. I think Castlevania specifically. Yes, this is the Clash of Demon Head band. I'm pretty sure that this is their best piece.
Yeah, you did say that you did think that there was a new Clash of Demon Head. You were just thinking of the band.
Maybe I was just thinking about the band. I could have swore that that game was a Clash of Demon Head sequel, but for some reason...
What Scott Pilgrim was?
No, the Getsu Fumaden.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they sound similar.
Just for some reason, in my brain that was like, oh yeah, they're just doing not like a up or like a remake, but like a reboot type thing that they sometimes do.
Right.
Could have swore that's what was happening. This looks more like Rambo, although his gun is really subtle if he has one. That or he's just shooting that from his hands. Like you can kind of see it in a couple of frames, but
yeah, when he's walking forward.
He's got his little pistol.
I have not played Getsu Fumaden yet. I keep getting like emails about like the DLCs that have come out for it, I think. I just haven't had a chance to play it yet. It's supposedly a Roguevania, but I have not had a chance to play it.
So, in this game, you can climb walls like the one on the right at some point. I'm not sure if it's something you unlocked or if I just never thought to hold up while next to this wall. But I'm pretty sure I tried that. So, yeah, I just assumed at this point that I was completely stuck. So I had to restart the game.
Oh boy. So, before the stream, Cauldrath told me that he started this game without even reading the manual, which is not something you want to do with an NES game. Yeah. Always read the manual for an NES game unless the title has Mario in it. Because most of them are going to have some kind of trick to them that isn't explained in the game itself. I think Mega Man's probably self-explanatory for the most part. Although, I have talked to people who did not know they could hit the start button and change weapons when they first played Mega Man. So, read your manuals. It's good for NES games.
Yeah.
So yeah, guided non-linear area I actually think is a very important point about Metroidvania games, because a lot of people get that confused with like a game that is just a giant maze. People are like, oh, it's a Metroidvania, and it's not really. I mean, it doesn't have quite the same experience because you're gonna be kind of frustrated running into hallways that don't seem to do anything for most of the experience.
Yeah. Also, one thing that I'd like to point out is that he did say that there should be multiple progression paths through the game at all times, which I'm not sure is necessarily true.
Well, I mean, looking at like Super Metroid and Castlevania, usually what happens is that you have two, and then you have a bottleneck, and then that leads to, two and then two again.
Yeah.
Like that's the Ender Lilies progression. Like at any point in the game, you pretty much have two choices, but then there are two major bottlenecks in that game. There was the end of the early access bottleneck, and then there was the of course the Turian type area where there's just nowhere else to go at that point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the end of the game is always going to have a bottleneck.
Right.
I guess unless you have like multiple endings and multiple areas, which I don't think I've ever seen a game do.
Technically, Ender Lilies did that. Just keeping Ender Lilies as an example.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
The other one's pretty much a non-ending.
Didn't Cave Story also have the option to like leave early?
Yeah, and then Batbarian has the same thing.
Oh, and Astalon.
Yeah, technically that one has the same thing going on, which is hilarious. What I like about that one is you don't even have to like hear about it from anywhere else. It's one of the achievements, so it's pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
So it's all about the item-gated progression. Yes, I do think that Zelda-like. So Zelda-like versus Metroidvania is something we'll probably bring up a lot on these streams. To me, they're very similar.
That's further down on the list.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll probably be talking about it tonight then. So we'll save that one for later.
I think the spooky skeleton man is how his name is just Tom.
Tom the skeleton.
Yeah, all the characters in this game have very normal names.
That's funny. I also like that he's like a Rambo soldier, but the things he's fighting are like scientific abominations or something. Like, what are these things?
It's kind of like all those asset flip games where they just like got random enemy assets and then threw them in with like a random character.
Yeah, I was gonna say this game does not have consistent theming. It just kind of does whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just kind of weird.
Pretty sure about that.
Yeah, like that enemy looks like it's from Mega Man. The like pig things look kind of like a Pokemon.
Clearly, the narrative is not their top priority in this game. To be fair, Metroid does kind of the same thing with its weird creatures, but it's supposed to be an alien planet, you know?
Maybe this is supposed to be an alien planet.
It could be, if the game would explain that. Although this area looks very alien to me. You're screwed.
Luckily, the death penalty in this game is not very bad.
I was
it's
about to
literally
say,
just go back to the map.
It would have to be very forgiving, considering how big that map is.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of stuff where it's just like, you'd have nowhere to go except for fall down, and oh, guess you're screwed by falling down here.
This game is so Japanese. What the heck was that?
Oh,
Oh no, you're just fighting natives now. Great. That's so funny. I like how they make you fall down the bottomless pits in this game.
But they're not bottomless.
Right. So anyway, I think the biggest difference with the guide non-linear area is to separate Metroidvania games from open world games.
Well, open world games aren't ability gated either.
That's what I mean, though. That's the thing, though, is that you make the argument that some open world games are ability gated.
I guess you could say that some of the areas are ability gated, but not like the world itself.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good example of that.
Like Arkham City, you have access to the whole city. Well, I think there might be some areas that are like plot gated, but like there's no ability gating that prevents you from getting to certain parts of the city. It's just like individual area, like buildings you can't get into.
yeah, that's a lot of the difference. Is that large portions of the game, like whole regions, will be blocked off in Metroidvania, but in an open world game, you know, maybe you start off being able to access 95% of it, and then there's comparatively small places that you cannot reach without the right ability.
Like for instance, Fallout, you could go straight to the ghoul place, but unless you get some kind of protection, you're going to get fried by the radiation type thing. Or another example would be Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You have to unlock all 4 of your abilities at the beginning of the game, so you could say that there is ability gating in the game, but you get so early on that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's like the tutorial section.
The Breath of the Wild tutorial is a Microvania. Prove me wrong.
It's more of a Zelda-like.
It's a Zelda-like. It's straight up Zelda-like.
Because it has dungeons.
So does a Metroidvania have to have defined corridors? I'm going to say no. I think you could have a Metroidvania like this, where it's all basically on an open world map area. I'm trying to think if there's any that like pull it off. There are a couple of areas in Portrait of Ruin that have very open areas. Oh, you mean like cut out? So I guess what you're trying to say is, could a Metroidvania be also open world, or have a? That I think that moves into the Zelda-like category, which we'll definitely talk about, and whether or not there should be a separation there.
Well, once you've unlocked all the abilities in a Metroidvania, it kind of becomes an open
Yeah. Or if you know how to do the secret techniques in Super Metroid, it's already an open world game.
Well, then you have the abilities. You just are aware that you have the abilities now.
Yeah. So Super Metroid, I think the only abilities that are required to get to most of the map are, like after playing the randomizer, I want to say the Morph Ball, probably the Bomb, and maybe the Speed Booster are the things that knock off big chunks of the map. After that, you can get past most things by using things like bomb jumping or wall jumping, etc.
We could look up what the low percent requirements are.
So Dr. Octorocket is asking whether or not it has to be an action platformer to be a Metroidvania. So we can talk about that. He's specifically bringing up Indivisible. Okay, so here's the question. Cauldrath, do you think the Indivisible is a Metroidvania?
I don't. I think it has to be like integrated together. Like it has to be an action game.
You think it has to be an action game?
Yeah. As soon as you like start going into like a different like screen for combat, then that it kind of like gets away from that.
So you think Monster Sanctuary is not a Metroidvania? Did I lose you there?
Yeah, I said correct.
So I obviously have a more open mind on that. I think that's an interesting way to do combat. So here's my counterpoint for this disagreement is when you engage with an enemy in combat, what is the difference between hitting them with a sword and hitting them with a sword and then moving to a separate screen for a moment and then coming back? Like obviously it breaks the flow and changes how combat is done, but
yeah, like I think a lot of Metroid, like the appeal of a Metroidvania is the integration between all the different aspects of the game. And as soon as you like switch to a different screen for combat, you lose that integration. This isn't something that I feel like really strongly about. It's like,
sure,
I'm not really like, yeah, I definitely don't have like
it's not as strong as you feel about Dead Cells, and it's
right, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I think that I would say no, but I could definitely be convinced.
Yeah, so there's a new Metroidvania coming out on October 1st. I think I just barely linked it in the upcoming Metroidvanias. Jibo and Gerbo versus Life. Their big thing is it's a party-based JRPG with a Metroidvania platformer world. So I'm interested in seeing how that turns out. I like the idea. Creepy Castle is one that I liked a lot. That has a completely unique battle system where it's more like WarioWare, and you have like little mini games that you fight. Arguably, the actual exploration aspect isn't Metroidvania enough because it has a very unique way of doing its platforming, etc. Very strange game called Creepy Castle. I recommend it. It's one I recommend primarily for its story focus and not necessarily because of its gameplay, but you may like the gameplay as well. I enjoy the gameplay. It's pretty... it's more based around like collecting items that heal you and less around performing the challenge as well. Although in some of the later levels, you definitely have to do the challenge as well.
So probably should get back to the document. Since
Sure.
we keep jumping forward on things, so probably just power through this so we can.
Sure.
So the next one is procedural generation, whether it's disqualifying for a game being a Metroidvania. And the main factor here is that it removes intentionality, which some people consider to be a very important part of a Metroidvania.
Mm-hmm. All right, so
Intentionality obviously makes a good Metroidvania, but it doesn't like not having the intentionality doesn't make the game less of a Metroidvania.
So I'm going to say that a robot named Fight will produce levels that are better than some of the Metroidvanias that I've played.
I
Like
agree.
Some of the worst Metroidvanias.
So it's not even necessarily the worst Metroidvanias. Okay, I'm just going to say it. I think that a robot named Fight makes better levels than Time Spinner had.
All right.
They've also updated this tangent. They've updated the procedural generation several times, so maybe you didn't even play the best version of the maps.
Well, the one I played was great.
Because it used to be a pretty strict layout of kind of a rectangle, but they sort of changed it around, so you can have all kinds of weird map shapes now.
You can also do the mega level that combines all the biomes together too.
Yes.
I think a robot named Fight is great, and I think it's a great concept of how a procedurally generated Metroidvania could be. And we'll see how Rogue Legacy 2 turns out. Rogue Legacy 1 was basically a corridor boss rush type thing, but we'll see what they do with the sequel as it moves through early access.
Okay, I thought that one was already out. I guess it's just early access now.
It is early access right now. So you can technically play it if you wanted to try it.
Oh.
I'm kind of at the point where I can't do early access anymore, though. There's just too many Metroidvanias to play.
Well, I'm in a weird situation where I like proc gen, but I don't like permadeath. So like, all of the games that have most of the games that have proc gen have permadeath. So I don't really get to do it.
If you save scum, you can get rid of your problem with those games.
Chasm
It's
has
like cheat engine for a lot of those to do that though.
Chasm has procedural generation without permanent death. So
Yeah.
Dr. Octorocket asks, how would I rate a robot named Fight against 30XX? They're different. A robot named Fight is basically Super Metroid.
Yeah, that feels pretty apples and oranges. It's like, which is better, Metroid or Mega Man?
Well, that's the other thing is I don't really feel like 30XX feels Mega Man to me, but that's mostly because Mega Man is not all about gaining stats. 30XX is kind of its own thing. It has obviously it's based around Mega Man X, but suddenly fairies.
Yep.
This game's just all over the place. What is this?
Yeah, they told me to go here and find this ferry, but okay, I guess she opened the route to Route 35.
I see.
I'm like, what? Why did I need? But now I also like have to walk back out of here.
And yes, Chasm is very procedural, or I'm sorry, Chasm is procedural. I used the wrong word very there. It's not most runs or seeds are going to have a lot of similarities to them. But the big thing is you don't know where the save points are. So that kind of raises the tension on exploring around, in my opinion.
But does having the save points randomized make the save point layout less? Does it have less quality because of that?
When it first came out, yes, it's a lot better now. There were a lot of hallways that were just straight hallways with enemies in them, which was a staple of Castlevania. And when you procedurally generate that, sometimes you'll get a bunch of those together, and then it's really terrible, and that doesn't happen anymore.
That is one nice. Or go ahead.
They have a lot more platforming sections and just more interesting sections besides just enemy fighting.
Yeah, that is one nice thing about procedural generated games is that you can like update them and then they'll be significantly better,
Or just
in
more.
ways that you can't do with like a regular one. Like if you look at DLC for most Metroidvanias, they just like tack on something somewhere and it doesn't like integrate with the rest of the map. Whereas if you like have DLC for a proc gen one, then it can get integrated into new maps.
Yeah, it makes it more replayable even if it was good in the first place too.
Right.
I agree.
So there was a lot of backlash against procedural generation when Chasm came out. They're like, this is the reason why this game was awful. And I don't think it was necessarily the procedural generation in concept. The implementation was, of course, at launch had some issues.
Yeah, I always felt like it wasn't the procedurally generated parts that were bad, it's that the rooms were bad.
But it gave procedural generation a bad reputation when it came out because of that.
Right.
So,
like, people think that, like, just because one part of a game is procedurally generated doesn't mean all of it is. And you can still put bad things into a game that uses procedural generation, even if they're handcrafted.
right.
Now, there is an argument that you could make that they spent too much time working on the procedural generation and didn't have enough time to work on the other stuff because of that. Just a problem of opportunity costs.
That's another perception that people seem to have is that, oh, wait, it's procedural because they want to randomize it because they're too lazy to actually handcraft it. And in reality, it's actually a heck of a lot more work to make a procedural generation that works correctly.
Right.
See, I've heard both of those arguments, but I've never actually heard them from someone who has
actually
made something procedurally generated.
done the work.
Like, how much time did they actually spend on it? I feel like it's mostly just people assuming.
Well, there's different levels of effort for procedural generation. Like, you can make something pretty quickly that does, like, the bare minimum.
It also depends on what you're trying to make as well. Yeah. Like, you can put less effort into something that works okay. Like Diablo levels, all you really need is a bunch of doors and a bunch of enemies type. Obviously, you can go beyond that, and they do, but I do think that would be less effort than creating a dungeon by hand in that scenario.
People also like assuming that putting less effort into one thing means that the same amount of work will be put into something else. I don't know if that's true.
Right.
Maybe someone's good at doing the procedural generation, but they're not good at making the actual game. So they do focus on that. But the game would be even worse if they didn't have the procedural generation and they just focused on making the game.
It's kind of like I had made procedurally generated background art for my practice of Metroidvania. Like, that was going to look like garbage no matter what. It looked slightly better because I did the procedurally generated thing.
So to Dr. Octorocket's point, that's another thing about like Chasm and even a robot named Fight is that it's not even... There's a lot of handcrafted levels that are stitched together randomly. Essentially, like you have the little pieces that all fit together.
How else does procedural generation work, though? Because at some point you run into a discrete element that you're putting with another element.
You're absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct. But I'm saying that at some point there's some handcrafting happening. So making that comparison between handcrafted versus procedural generation is also not necessarily... Like, when you say, oh, it's inherently better, it's like, well, it is handcrafted, though.
People just always bring that up for some reason. I don't understand why.
The handcrafted is better?
Still making the, rooms, or if not rooms, parts of rooms.
Right. Unless
it's, random decals put together, which I guess wouldn't count.
It's trying to assign a blame to something they just didn't enjoy.
Yeah, maybe they just didn't enjoy it because it's like Castlevania.
Or like if you played something and you didn't enjoy it and you're trying to explain why, you gotta blame something. And I think that's what the procedural generation becomes the scapegoat because it's the thing that was unique about Chasm at the time.
Right.
Yeah, it's not my fault that I don't like this game.
The Zelda 1 map generator, does that even produce good levels? I like Zelda 1 a lot, but you could almost get away with a Zelda 1 map generator. But that's because those are all just square rooms anyway.
Right. We want to move on to backtracking and recontextualization.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Right. So, yeah, some people say that the real essence of a Metroidvania is recontextualizing previous content.
Who was the one who made the video on that? Was that Adam Millard? There's There was somebody who made a video about Super Metroid, and that was the reason that made Super Metroid great.
I remember watching the video you're talking about, but I don't remember who did it. I should probably look that up.
Yeah, let me find it real quick. I bet you anything if I type in recontextualization into YouTube, I'll find it super quick.
Explaining recontextualization is just what we were getting to.
Yeah. Apparently that recontextualization is used in more places besides video games. There's other things besides video games? I got a video called Super Metroid is Objectively Bad. And it has a picture of Alucard on the front of it.
Oh.
I think I need to watch this video. Actually, there's a lot of other videos that I probably should spend my time on. I can't remember it now. I guess we'll have to find it afterwards, and I'll put it in the video description if we do find it. Or, comment below if you know what it is. So, do you want to explain recontextualization, Cauldrath?
I probably should. So yeah, recontextualization is when you take earlier content and then because something changed about either your character or something in the game itself, generally because of your character, the content is different somehow. So one of the most basic things is just like, oh, there's this door, you can't open it, and now you can open it because you have missiles now that open it.
So to plagiarize the video that I can't remember what it is, they use the beginning of Super Metroid as an example. Like when you first land, it's like really dark and there's quiet, sinister music. And then when you come back, it's playing like the theme of Samus, and you'll have new abilities at that point by your spaceship to access more areas next to your spaceship. And you can keep coming back to that area, like after you get super bombs and the speed boots and a couple of other things, and keep finding things in that area that kind of just changes the mood and feel of when you first landed. And that's kind of what he believes is the essence of what a Metroidvania is. And there's a lot of people that have latched onto that, including myself. I actually believe that is a good way to capture the feel of a Metroidvania, is to give this idea of growth as you move through the game's world.
Probably the most important part when considering how people usually associate Metroidvania with getting stronger somehow. Though that, of course, leads to lots of confusion.
Yeah, not necessarily leveling up. I think that the idea that the world you're in that is hostile to you at first, and then you kind of tame the world with your abilities, is a very good... at the very least, it's a desirable trait for a Metroidvania to have. I don't know if it's necessarily part of the definition of Metroidvania, but it definitely leads to a good experience with a Metroidvania.
I think I might have found it. An Adam Millard video.
Is it Adam Millard? That makes sense. So I was right. Sometimes I can remember things. Well, good. I'm going to go ahead and put that in my... you're probably going to hear it for a second because I'm just streaming my desktop video. I'm going to put that in my tab so I can make sure I link that when I upload this to YouTube.
You gotta ask that.
You should watch that. Adam Millard's a good channel, by the way. You should watch him in general.
I should as well. I don't watch videos on things I already know about.
Oh, so you're a complete expert on contextualization and Metroidvanias.
I don't watch videos because I don't have time. Like, for instance, Jeremy Parrish's entire catalog is something I need to watch, and Mossbag, since I'm also terrible at Hollow Knight lore, and he can help me out a lot.
But yeah, recontextualization and backtracking. So I think that backtracking is an important part of a Metroidvania, and like If you don't have it, you probably don't have a Metroidvania. But let's see. I think that might be the. Oh yeah. So the very next thing on the document is the question of like discussing emergent features versus inherent features. And I feel like the ones we've gone over today are not features inherent to a Metroidvania, but are emergent and like.
So I'm going to say
If Metroidvania is good, it will wind up accidentally doing these.
So I'm going to say the backtracking is an emergent feature and not an inherent feature.
Would you say it's emergent from Well, okay, you kind of need to have backtracking, I guess, for recontextualization, right?
Right.
Would you say that upgrades are emergent from recontextualization?
No, I would say that upgrades are inherent and they create the recontextualization. So you could say that recontextualization is emergent as well.
Right.
See, I kind of feel like recontextualization is one of the primitive elements of a Metroidvania, sort of. Like, there are core concepts to Metroidvanias that would be lengthy to describe, but they're kind of where the features come from.
So one of my favorite things to say is that backtracking is a consequence, not a feature. If you are creating a situation where you're exploring, you want your player to backtrack because they want to, not because they have to. Like that, the idea of recontextualization, you see the mouth of Kraid's lair, for instance, was the famous example that Mark Brown used and everybody uses when they're talking about this concept. And you can't reach it because you don't have the high jump yet, and you don't know how to wall jump or slash bomb jump in order to get up there. Or apparently you can just run to jump onto it. I think I did that during the randomizer. But anyway, you see that, and then you get the high jump, and you can remember that face and that you couldn't make that jump, and it makes you want to backtrack to that spot. That's good, in my opinion. When you say that backtracking is an element of Metroidvania games, and a designer puts it in their game just to make it a Metroidvania, or puts backtracking in their game because they think it's a feature that people want, then you run the risk of the annoying type of backtracking where you're just retreading the same content with no benefit to the player, no novelty, no. I guess novelty is the only word I can really use there. That doesn't feel like it's a new challenge, and you're just retracing your steps in a tedious way.
So like in Metroid Prime, where you have to go and get all the stuff at the end.
Yes. Well, yes and no. So the thing about Metroid Prime and the big criticism that I agree with is that it's not so much that you had to find all those ancient artifacts. I actually found that part probably my favorite part of the game. It's the fact that you couldn't do it as you played the game. Like, you would be in an area with it, and there's just no way you could have obtained it with the abilities you had at the time. Or it was inaccessible for some reason. And yeah, as Unknown V2 said, some people just make backtracking as a way to extend the game. And yes, it should be a treasure hunt. There's nothing worse than trying to find the pixel in a Metroidvania world because there's too many screens. If you're going to have puzzles like that, you really need to have the Astalon Tears of the Earth / Batbarian / La Mulana single screen rule, where you can see everything on a screen at a time, so you're not missing things because of camera angles. And you can kind of assess each room individually.
Well, I feel like even with La Mulana having single screen, it still had that issue where a lot of it was pixel hunty.
There's Sulama Lana had a lot of riddles that gave you hints on where things were, though.
But not all of them had
Which
hints.
Which is what I was going to say about Metroid Prime. I felt like it needed more hints on where those artifacts were. I think you
Well,
could...
it gives you a pretty precise hint, like when at that point in the game.
Yeah, I think when you scanned each artifact, it gave you a hint where it was. The scavenger hunt aspect.
I mean, they were pretty good hints. Like, you could tell which room they were in, I think, every time. Or at least maybe like, oh, it could be one of these two places.
Oh gosh, what was the... You played it, Cauldrath, the game that inspired La Milana?
Oh, Maze of Gallius?
Yeah, Maze of Gallius. I still need to play that.
Yeah. I don't know. That's really necessary.
Is it better than Clash of Demon Head?
Alright, yeah, I think it is. Of course, I did like look up like stuff that was in the instruction manual for that one. So that's also definitely a game that you have to look at the instruction manual for, because this one at least has like descriptions of the items in the shop. But Maze of Gallius, just like you get an item, it doesn't even tell you the name of it. It's just like you have an icon on your screen now.
I thought that was kind of a neat thing that Astalon did, where that was completely optional, having the descriptions.
Yeah, but the things that it does in Astalon are a little bit more obvious. Like, some of the stuff in Maze of Gallius only affects one of the two characters. So you would, if you were on the other character, you'd have no way of knowing that anything was affected at all.
So watching this video makes me want to use RetroArch more, because it has the screenshot option. Although technically you could just use the snipping tool from Windows if you're playing on PC.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so I don't know that you can look at the screenshots of the game itself.
That's funny.
So I had to like tab over.
So basically it's better to just use the snipping tool anyway.
Yeah, I guess I was looking for it here. So yeah, like I wind up like going to the other, like going to my file menu and like finding the screenshot.
I'm just gonna jump ahead on the video for a little bit. There we go.
Right.
Now we're not just looking at the RetroArch HUD.
Still looking at me putting in this password, tabbing it over to the picture and then putting in more.
So anyway, backtracking is just one of those things that I don't like saying as part of the definition of Metroidvania, because I think that it's kind of misleading to say that it is.
There's also a little bit of a negative connotation with backtracking.
Yes, and there should be.
Some random person might hear like, "Oh, Metroidvanias, those are the games about backtracking." No, thank you.
Yeah. Most Metroidvania detractors are like, I don't like not knowing where I'm supposed to go. And I'm like, that can be fair. It depends on the Metroidvania.
Well, you'd have the same problem in open world games then.
See, the open world games, there is like no place that you need to, like, Metroidvania games, there is a specific place you have to go at a certain point. Like, once you get to that bottleneck where you have to have an ability to progress, you gotta go get it. Whereas an open world game, you really never have that problem. So I guess any direction is good at any in an open world.
So you could have like an open world game like Assassin's Creed, where it has like a certain area that you're allowed to be in based on your plot progression. Mm-hmm. And then you could like clear out everything in that area, and then you have to go to like do the plot progression quest, and then then that expands the world.
Now, admittedly, I haven't played a ton of open world games, like the Elder Scrolls games are the main ones that come to mind, and Breath of the Wild, which obviously has its...
Yeah, so there's ones that have, like those are ones where the entire world is available as soon as you start, but then there's also ones where they have like, you have a specific section that you're allowed to be in, and you aren't allowed to go outside of that until the plot has progressed a certain amount.
I also played Infamous and Infamous 2, or in a couple other open world games that might be similar. Those games just kind of told you where to go next, though. Which Metroidvanias have done too.
Yeah. People seem to be more upset about Metroidvanias telling you where to go than open world games.
Which I think is funny.
I think it's actually easier to navigate with hints in a 3D space than 2D space, because a lot of open world games are kind of, I mean, they're kind of flat. They're not in any direction. You hold W or push up your stick and you walk in the direction, and maybe there's like a hill or a mountain or a valley, but most of the time you can walk in that direction and get where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just walk right in a Metroidvania until you get to where you're going.
The thing is, like, most 3D open world games aren't really 3D. They don't really have any verticality. So if you constructed a map the same way in 2D as they do in 3D, it would just be hold right and you'd wind up there.
That'd be very boring.
Yeah. And hence, when you explore a completely flat terrain in a 3D game, it's also kind of boring.
Yes. Yeah, you definitely need to have verticality in a Metroidvania game. I'm trying to think. People said that Dark Souls has really good verticality. Sense Fortress, that's definitely true. There's a bunch of good places that have verticality in Dark Souls.
I think a lot of what they're referring to is just the overall layout of the world.
Well, I'm thinking of the levels themselves as well. Like, take Duke's Archives, has 3 levels to it. You've got Blight Town, which the entire point of that is climbing down into the swamp. There's some good levels for that, and every level I can think of, there's at least 2 layers to the whole thing.
The tree's pretty much entirely vertical, which I think is neat.
This boss is amazing. Turbo controller boss.
Hey, this is all me. I'm just pressing the button.
Too bad it was easy to see she was a fake.
Oh my god.
You were shooting at me.
Oh, it's the Pandars. They're the big bad guys in this game.
There are some bad guys in this game.
Oh, did you put that Adam Millard thing into your document?
Yeah.
Very nice. So do we want to move on to interconnected worlds?
Yeah.
Well, wait, hold on. What other emergent features can we talk about, though?
Oh, emergent features. Let me think.
We only really talked about the one, then we got sidetracked.
Backtracking really is the bane of emergent feature I could think of from a Metroidvania game.
Guided non-linearity is also what I consider an emergent feature.
Maps are an emergent feature.
Okay, so everything's emergent.
No, I'm saying that you could technically have a Metroidvania without a map, but you it's been said that it's kind of a part of the genre as
That's on there. That's number 13.
Oh, okay. I guess that's a good number for it too.
Can you just reduce Metroidvania to a single word? If so, what would the word be? I think it's exploration.
Exploration is probably a good word. Let's see. Dr. Rocket says, I have to feel like open world games are a lot less filled than Metroidvania. Sure, you can go anywhere, but most of it is empty. A Metroidvania keeps us trapped in tunnels, but most of them has not lead to something interesting.
I feel like that's also another, that's a mark of a good Metroidvania and a good open world game.
Yes.
Rather than an inherent feature to them.
Yeah, those are quality factors, I would say. And then what about new combat techniques as you gain movement skills? Now, that is a good point as an emergent feature. Like, for instance, the double jump, its purpose is to get you into a new area. but it also becomes one of the most useful combat abilities because being able to hop in the middle of the air turns out to be a great way to dodge things. Not to mention it makes all the platforming just that much easier from that time forward.
But that's getting back to ability gating.
Yeah. So
basically, everything's emergent.
Well, inherent would be... So let's talk about what's inherent. Like, inherent would be the things that have to be in a Metroidvania for it to be a Metroidvania. Right?
Oh no, but if we talk about that, it's going to be 30 minutes of what is a Metroidvania.
Well, that's what this whole thing is. That's what we've been doing for 90 minutes. Or technically we're at, like, what, 2.5 hours at this point? Whoops.
Right. We're going to get to it anyways, so...
I guess it's fine that it's taking so long for me to actually make this video because we're never going to get through this document.
There's a reason why I've never tried to tackle this subject. Gosh, you know, this video that's coming out this next Monday has already taken me, you know, well over 80 hours to put together. I could only imagine what doing a definition of Metroidvania video would be like. So
do documentary style and just have interviews with other people, and then just play the interviews.
Yeah, and don't even come to any conclusions. Just
I mean, the goal wasn't to come to a conclusion.
Go to some con with a microphone and just be like, "What do you think of Metroidvania is?" And he's like wearing a furry outfit, and he's like, I Metroid Castlevania.
You play all the interviews, then you just state your own opinion at the end, and pretend like somehow those two things connect.
See, when you say state your own opinion at the end, I can just imagine myself just getting in front of the camera and saying, and all these people are wrong. And then that's how the video ends. Let's see. I think the alternative is if the map is key gated, you don't get any new gameplay. Whereas if the map sequence unfolds the same way, if the map sequence unfolds the same way with ability getting. Yeah, that is I think another thing that I think separates open world games from Metroidvania games to me is that in open world games, generally speaking, anything you find isn't necessary and therefore is just kind of collectible. Whereas in a Metroidvania, if it's done well, and this could be just a quality statement, but if it's done well, most of what you find is meaningful and affects the game in significant ways.
Yeah, with basically everything we stated about game genres, that's the way things trend toward, but it's not necessarily, you know,
right.
All games must meet this criteria.
Right. I mean, that is a criticism that I'll make against Metroidvanias that don't do this, is if it has just... Like, for instance, if your game happens to have a staple collectible that happens to be just hats. Like, once you have one hat, you're pretty much done. Like, you get a hat you like, and then any hat you find after that is just like, oh, look, another hat.
Are we talking about kunai now?
Whereas in Super Metroid, finding more missiles is usually always at least like, okay, well, I can use these. Not necessarily like super exciting, but at least it's something you can use.
Yeah, like Cycron had color palettes.
Oh yeah, it did. I changed my color palette every time I got one.
Oh, okay.
That's the best way to do it. You see all the palettes, and it's exciting.
Yeah. I was pink for a while. I was pink the longest, I think. I'll have to look at my footage. I think I ended up as gray, because I think that's like one of the last ones you get. Now you want hats in Metroid. I don't have a problem with hats. The problem is when it's the only thing you find that becomes less interesting to me. Interestingly, Grime's adding stats to its armors now, which I thought was interesting.
Then it's gonna like ruin people's looks unless they let you like mix and match the like appearance and the stats.
I feel like Grime is sort of in early access right now, and it just wasn't labeled that way because he's making some pretty significant changes, and I guess apparently he's redoing the story now, which I think is interesting.
Well, I feel like it was a complete game. It's just not polished yet.
Yeah. See, but that's how a lot of early access games start out. Honestly, I think that's the best time to put it into early access is when you have basically a complete game and you just make it better at that point.
I'd agree with that. It's annoying when a game comes out in early access, but it's like, oh, we have 1/5 of the game available. It's an
Right.
hour long.
D-Lit.
Yeah. The D-Lit style, the bigger problem with D-Lit is that it makes it less Metroidvania that way because it ends up just being levels at that point. Hats and SteamWorld Heist were top tier. I haven't played SteamWorld. I need to play the other SteamWorld games. SteamWorld Dig is great.
Yeah, I've only played the digs.
You were spelling Dwight, and then you just stopped spelling Dwight.
I've played Heist. Heist is fun.
Again, I don't have a problem with hats. I think they're perfectly fine. It's just, it was the other problem with Jedi Fallen Order. Jedi Fallen Order had enough of the really important upgrades that I thought that was fine, but a lot of what you found was you got a new look for your lightsaber. I'm like, am I paying that much attention to my lightsaber that I care about this?
Hey, it is flashing on your screen a whole lot.
And you get different ponchos and different shirts that you wear under the poncho that you never see.
I actually didn't wear the poncho because my computer wasn't strong enough to handle it. It's like this thing's waving around too
You didn't get to
much.
see the shirt, but you didn't get to see the poncho because you had no poncho.
That's true. So you only get to see one of them. You get to choose which one you get to see. Yeah. Again, I don't mind that stuff. I actually think that the lightsaber parts probably had stats at one point during development. I also think that the skill tree was a lot bigger during development because if you look in the background, it looks like there's more there. So it's interesting to think about what they may have cut from the game during the process.
And then they never went and put it back.
Yeah, I don't know if the skill tree is necessarily bad the way they left it, but the lightsaber parts, it would have been nice if they did something.
I do like customization.
There needs to be a mod
If
that's
it's cosmetic. Though the best is when it's cosmetic, but okay, the best is when it's equipment that has stats, but then you just equip things for cosmetics. Because then people will,
the fashion souls.
yeah. People react to that kind of thing.
I think it's funny when they react to that kind of thing. Especially since the armors actually don't even matter that much in Dark Souls. Dark Souls 2 actually is funny enough, the one where the armor matters the most. You're gonna try something? Oh, you're gonna do it? Good. I'm so happy that you tried that.
There's only one way to know.
3 is the one that just doesn't matter, because, 3 is just, a ported Bloodborne.
So Dr. Rocket says that it might not be that they had anything planned, they just left stuff open, and that's also possible. I know for a fact that Final Fantasy VI has a cut character because there's documentation of that. I guess they said there was going to be another female character named, I think, Angela? And she was supposed to be like a big sister to Cyan. This may be making things up or just something that somebody made up on the internet, but it's plausible. There's a chance that that's true.
Sounds like fan fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I forget the name, like the mime character.
Oh, Go-Go.
Yeah, Go-Go and Maro or whatever, the Yeti, they felt pretty tacked on already.
Honestly, because Final Fantasy V already existed, they were just trying to get all the classes covered. They wanted a Berserker class, and although the point of the Berserker class is you could actually equip things on them, so Umaro was kind of botched in that sense. But then Go-Go was a cameo thing. A criticism I've heard for Final Fantasy VI is that it has too many characters. And boy, oh boy, is this a tangent.
Yeah.
So, interconnected world. Let's explain interconnected world. What do we mean by that?
So, basically, if you'd have a linear world, then it's just like a line of areas, and that doesn't work very well for a Metroidvania. and then there's also like a hub and spoke style thing where it has like a central area and then just like areas shooting off from that.
You got the Roboto.
Yeah, so an interconnected world has it so that you can go between different areas from like multiple other areas. So what that does is it makes it a lot easier to get around, because you don't have to go through as many areas to get to another one. And it also makes it less linear, so you can like go around to different places in different orders.
But then there's the argument that not having it that way disqualifies it from being a Metroidvania.
Yeah, interconnected world is part of my definition.
Yeah,
so
Mega Man Zero is definitely all about spokes. You might say that Mega Man Zero is a crest-like. And when I say Mega Man Zero, I mean Mega Man ZX. Mega Man Zero is basically just a strange way of doing the level select.
yeah.
Metroid Fusion was a strange way of doing the level select.
You could say that. Except that there was no level select in that. You basically just got gold. There wasn't any reason to go anywhere that you weren't told to go.
Boom, crest like. We call them fusion legs.
Fusion legs.
That's like, so crest likes are still non-linear. You just select where you're going off of a level or off the like level select.
So the official genre name is now Demon Clash Fusions.
I don't think fusion at all is like all that at all.
But you can go anywhere once you get the ability. So it's an
Those are all world go.
I need to play the Fusion Rando. I need to play Fusion a couple more times, especially if I want to make a video on it at some point. So far, I've only played it once.
Go ahead.
I also need to get a better appreciation for Fusion because, to be quite honest, the gameplay aspect of it, I really loved the story, but the gameplay aspect of it kind of annoyed me. At least until certain things happen.
Don't tell anyone I said this, but I think that Fusion is overrated.
So you think it's highly rated?
Yeah.
It depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
I think Fusion is generally the one that people haven't played, and I don't think it's anybody who's played all of them. I don't know. There's a few people that might be their favorite, but
You think more people have played 2 than Fusion?
I think more people have played Zero and Super Metroid than any of the others.
Yeah.
Zero Mission.
Those are the best ones.
Maybe Prime as well.
Well, yeah. Those are the 2 best 2D ones.
Sure.
So yeah, like, because it is part of my definition, I actually have different like Metroid-like genres.
We gotta stop for a second. What the crap is happening in here? In the game, like, are those like mushroom girl dancers that in bikinis
Subway hats.
with subway hats that shoot fire? What? in a castle, no less. What is going on in this game?
They're having a clash at Demon Head. I don't know.
Oh, so they have demon head syndrome. Okay, so the mushroom thing is probably more true right now. Oh, talking time. Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just my brain was just producing smoke for a second there.
So yeah, because I include interconnected world in my definition of Metroidvania, I've like created genres based on the way that they violate like being an interconnected world. So because some games have basically dungeons, and like so isolated areas that are just like not connected to anything else. I consider those Zelda-likes. And then if the world isn't interconnected because it's separated into levels, then those are Crest-likes.
Other than that, they're basically just Metroidvanias.
Yeah, they're basically Metroidvanias, except not interconnected world, and this is how they don't have an interconnected world.
So what does K-Story fall into that?
I would say that it's just a linear game.
It's just a linear game.
Action platformer.
Yeah.
Just an action platform.
Like it doesn't really have ability gating because you get the abilities before you need them.
So
It's been a long time since I played it, so I don't.
So Jeremy Parrish thinks that Cave Story is a Metroidvania, and now Mossbag says that Cave Story is a Metroidvania. I think we're getting outvoted by YouTubers that are more famous than us.
It's not a popularity contest.
Yeah.
But isn't it? Isn't it?
When it comes to definitions, actually, yes.
That is
It's a
absolutely
popularity
true. Like, for instance, the definition that Metroidvania is only when Castlevania combined itself with Metroid elements. Let's make it zero-like. So, I'm watching this battle, and I'm just not understanding how you're supposed to dodge this thing.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on this fight.
And maybe you'll figure it out, and
I
the
do
mystery will be
like
solved.
I do figure it out like at the an hour and 40-minute mark.
That's funny. I don't know if I'll get that far. So that's basically the rest of the video is you fighting this mushroom dude?
No, because I have to like go somewhere else and get money again because I use up all of my resources.
Okay, I was going to skip
But
it if that was the case, but...
It's not a mushroom, it's a hat. None of them are mushrooms, they're just cowboys.
There are mushrooms falling from the hat.
Yeah, I
Well,
think there's a
has
mushroom
hair.
theme going on here.
He has hair. It's a mushroom strip club or something.
Sure.
Shrooms. Shrooms Gentleman Club. So Dr. Rocket says all language is a popularity contest, and we definitely agree. And so where does Brie Larson come in? I don't know. That's kind of out of the blue, but I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't know. I don't think that they would do a good job with a Metroid movie, so I don't really care who the actress is. If it ends up being good, it has nothing to do with the actress, so that's not true. Some performances can really make a movie, but I think it needs to be well written and well directed before the actress can do anything. I don't know.
like how his mouth looks like a face, and then his hat comes off, and you see it's his mouth.
I don't know though. They're making that Mario movie now, so maybe they'll make a Metroid movie with Chris Ricks as Samus and Jack Black as Mother Brain.
Oh my god.
Oh.
See, there's a difference between making a movie to tell a story and making a bunch of nothing in an animated movie for children.
I don't understand why children movies are allowed to just be about nothing, though. I think that the children need to have good movies more than adults do, because they're impressionable.
Probably because the adults taking the children to the movies are lazy.
I guess?
Show your children good movies.
So
Yeah, that's
children should see good movies, but they're okay with movies that aren't good.
Yeah,
Maybe
children
so.
have no taste.
So, Dr. Octorok finally explained why he brought up Brie Larson is. That's because Brie Larson played Envy Adams, the singer at Clash of Demon Head. So now I understand. I thought we were talking about Brie Larson saying that she wanted to play as Samus. I'd still rather see the movie with Chris Ricks as Samus and Jack Black as Brother Brain, though. It'd be a terrible movie, but it would be entertaining, right?
Who's Chris Ricks?
Isn't that who's playing Mario? I was just joking.
Chris Pratt?
Oh gosh. Chris Pratt. Where did I get Chris Ricks from? Chris Pratt. Yeah. No, Chris Pratt. Obviously it would have to be a woman for Samus, but
I know they can...
Jack Black could be Brother Brain.
Wouldn't it be very appropriate for like them to go through the whole Metroid movie, and at the end of it, they do a reveal of the character, and you find out that's not the gender you expected?
That would be appropriate, especially after the manual says that it's a he, the entire manual. They totally did that on purpose. I don't
Or maybe there was a miscommunication.
It could have been a very poor localization, but they had to translate the game, so they would have seen Samus as a woman, I think. Maybe not.
Unless it was different people translating it.
Yeah, unless they just passed them the manual, who knows. So do you need your little, like, environmental suit to climb?
Apparently not, because I actually climb at some point without it on.
It could have been a translation thing. It definitely affected the way the English audience reacted to the game, though. I completely agree, though. It could have been a translation thing.
Honestly, I think it was a good thing.
Good thing to surprise people.
Yeah.
It could have been a marketing thing. Like, it could have just been a U.S. marketing thing, too. And then they just left in the surprise in the end.
Apparently there was, official art that they released for advertisements where it showed, like, Samus surrounded, with women on her arms.
Oh, really? So, either they knew or they just didn't, I don't know. I guess they could say that Samus is... swings that way, but
they never really. Well, they kind of imply that there's a relationship with Adam, but
well, she says that. Okay, see, this is one of the reasons why I want to do another M video is to talk about some of that stuff. She talks about Adam as a father figure. Like,
I agree.
It's less that,
or can be different at least.
Yeah.
Samus is confirmed the first LGBT Nintendo protagonist.
Sure. At this point, there's nothing that says that she's one way or the other. You could say that she's in love with Adam. You could say that she just thinks of him as family.
That kind of garbage does not need to be a thing. Like,
not necessarily.
Like, well, what I mean is that you'll have low-quality articles assuming, like, character identity things that don't matter for the game and aren't stated.
Right.
Characters exist, they must be shipped.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, so Matto looked into Samus as on Legends of Localization in the Japanese manual. She was raised by alien birds away from humans. It would see maybe well be an ace. That's interesting. Oh, hey, it's the famous person. Actually, I'm in a good position where I can delete this. I don't know that I can do it from OBS. I guess I'll have to just look at my chat from Twitch from now on. So they actually mentioned that she was raised by alien birds in the Japanese manual. That's interesting.
Maybe she's just into alien birds.
Yeah, she had an alien bird boyfriend growing up. Once you go alien bird, you never go back.
How did we even get here? What are we talking about?
Interconnected worlds.
Oh, those are two different thoughts. Two different trains of thoughts. That's what happens when I'm not reading the chat as it happens. I I apologize about that, Dr. Octorocket. Oh,
Do we want to move on to requiring multiple primary progression routes through the game? Well, I guess we kind of brought that up during the guided nonlinearity part.
So what I think is funny is didn't you have a definition at one point where you had a number of routes that were necessary?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I tried to quantify the number, and I came up with like some arbitrary 50% of things need to have at least 3 exits, and then I went and looked at Super Metroid. I'm like, this is so strict that Super Metroid does not qualify. So need to loosen that up a bit. And then I haven't bothered to figure out an actual number.
Yeah, I don't know.
Actual number. Overrated.
Yeah.
Okay, so Legends of Localization says that Samus was called a he in Japanese too, so I guess it was intended as a subversion of expectation. Which is good, because that's the direction I took my video. That's coming up. my video is for English speakers, so they're all going to...
I don't know, it's also kind of dumb that, I mean, okay. It was a long time ago. Just gender reveals are dumb.
I don't know if they did general reveals like they do now. That's been a social media thing, I think.
They could rename the power bomb the gender reveal bomb.
The gender reveal bomb. It destroys all human flesh, and the normal building stuff can't stop it. I like I like the way you're thinking here with this boss fight. Okay, so the blessed parents thing didn't count. I don't think. Oh, so you mean the bird parents, blessed parents? Metroid Zero Mission canonizes it in the games itself. It doesn't you don't necessarily have to have the manga to.
Yeah, there was a comic in Nintendo Power where they had showed some of Samus's past.
Yeah, and then Metroid Zero Mission shows that past and its ending.
Yeah.
I think there's actually extra ending screens in the Japanese version that confirm it as well. What I think is interesting is apparently there's some mangas that say that the Chozo created the Metroids to fight the X Parasite, which I think is an interesting twist.
I thought that was kind of canon with how often I've seen it.
As far as I know,
isn't that why the X Parasite come back, because the Metroids were eliminated?
That's canon in Metroid Fusion. Is
okay.
So they do say that the X Parasite is the natural enemy of the X Parasite is the Metroids, and they're back because the Metroids are gone. They don't necessarily reveal that the Chozo are the ones who created the Metroids to combat the X Parasite. That's something that I read on a wiki.
Oh yeah, I understand now.
And it would make sense that Samus wouldn't know that information, because then she wouldn't be so surprised about the X Parasite when at the beginning of Metroid Fusion. So we're making this
kind of not actually killed all the Metroids in Metroid 2. Because she would have known the results, the consequences.
Oh, does Samus Returns make the Chozo invented the Metroids, or created the Metroids, a canon thing? I don't remember that specifically from the game. The game also doesn't really have a lot of text, so...
I was saying if Samus knew that the X Parasites were there because of were not active because of the Metroids, then she probably wouldn't have murdered all of them in Metroid 2.
Yes.
Or she might just be that, all business. It's oh, you guys hired me to do this, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
She probably realized there was a danger, because that's kind of how it goes.
We're turning this into a Metroid lore discussion.
Yeah.
We probably should just.
I mean, it's almost over.
That's true. We're at the end of the stream at this point. We could do that next time. Which, by the way, I'm traveling next week, so I won't be able to stream. But I'm telling you, there's nothing stopping you from holding your own stream while I'm gone, guys.
But we need you.
Hey, we could try to do Castlevania stream.
I haven't been
Yeah,
watching.
maybe we can convince Etzero to like host a stream.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, there you go. And then just send me the video, and I can put it up. So it's on this, or you don't even have to send me the video. I can just put it on our playlist, and Etzero can host it. I don't even. That's fine. Just put it on the playlist that way. If you guys want to do it without me. Anyway, my video for the Metroid lore is going up on Monday. If you guys watch it, maybe we can talk about Metroid lore after that.
Yeah, right before the video gets posted. I guess it's probably fresh in your mind right now, though.
That's probably why I'm bringing it up so much, is because it's so fresh in my mind right now.
We should really try to get through more of the outline. We got like 3 bullet points today.
Yeah, it's fine as long as we're having a discussion. It's not about getting through the outline. It's about discussing the outline. Although right now we're not really discussing the outline.
The outline as an outline for our discussion.
Okay, so requiring bosses. Are bosses required for Metroidvania games?
I have heard people say this. So Axiom Verge 2 does allow you to skip bosses, and Ori 1 doesn't really have bosses. Like, sort of. There are rooms that it locks you into, and then you have to kill like a larger version of an enemy to get through.
So Ori 1 is not a Metroidvania because it doesn't have bosses, and not because it's a Zelda-like.
Well, there can be multiple things disqualifying a game.
Sure.
Bosses are convenient and a big part of action game, but a Metroidvania doesn't necessarily need bosses. It doesn't need bosses any more than an action game needs bosses. And even then, or all Metroidvania's action games.
We kind of actually discussed that earlier. Like, whether they are action games or not. Like, when we were talking about, like, the separate RPG stuff.
Yeah, but we know. I never commented much on that, and I feel bad because I could have.
Well,
we'll
go ahead
comment.
and say your piece now.
I'll
Speak
go
now
in.
or forever hold your peace.
I'll edit the video. Just insert my thoughts, like in between
What did
your guys' sentences.
we watch? What did we watch last time when we talked about this? What video was playing in the background?
When we talked about bosses?
No, when we talked about about your outline.
I think that was Elliot Quest.
Did I have Elliot Quest in the background? You know, that might be true. Okay.
Yeah, we actually did Elliot Quest, and then the next week we did bosses, including the Elliot Quest final boss.
Okay, so what's going to happen is that I'm going to edit the video like Master's requesting, and we're going to be playing Elliot Quest, and then all of a sudden, Dr. Rocket's comments will suddenly appear on the screen with Clash of Demon Head, and then Master's going to say a bunch of things, and then it's going to go back to Elliot Quest.
Perfect.
So bosses are seen like a hallmark, but not a necessity, which I think is funny. So when Axiom Verge 2 came out, a lot of the reviews were like, "And it's it's subverting Metroidvania tropes like bosses," and I'm like, just wait a minute. Let's not put bosses in with Metroidvania definitions.
Well, okay, so it is something that's in almost every Metroidvania.
Okay, so define
just
almost
like-
every.
Alright. Can you, I had, those are the two examples I thought of where you don't have to fight bosses to beat them.
Dreaming Sarah, let me think.
Does Loot Box Life even have combat?
Yeah, Gloopbox Life is a good example. I'm playing a game called Within a Deep Forest, which is by Niflas. which is actually more of a Zelda-like, but that's a different story. Doesn't have bosses. Underground didn't have bosses. It also didn't have ability gating. So maybe those aren't great examples because they don't necessarily fit the Metroidvania mold. Yoku's Island Express shouldn't have had bosses.
Yeah. Just like pacing-wise, it's good for lots of...
It's a climax.
Lots of games have bosses. We don't need to consider that for Metroidvania, I think.
I like the question of whether maps are required.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to that.
It's a very common feature, and some like a lot of people just play Metroidvanias for the bosses.
Right, like Hollow Knight, I think is probably a boss game.
Yeah.
I personally think that Environmental Station Alpha has very good bosses, but apparently someone on the Metroidvania server really doesn't like the bosses in Environmental Station Alpha. So do you get your ability upgrades all from the Super Shop?
As far as I can tell, yes. Although I'm not sure if I unlocked the ability to climb at some point.
I don't think you did.
Interesting.
Also, I had just been like farming a bunch of gold, and I'm like, hey, maybe I can sell this to the shop. No, you can't.
Yeah,
At least not, not the way I found.
Oh, so the gold doesn't... Oh, wait, what? Is the gold
So I
separate
had like
from money?
16 gold. Yeah.
I saw you farming that gold, and I was like, oh, that's a nice exploit. And you can't do it? What do you do with the gold?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
So
funny.
I just spent all that time farming gold for, I don't know.
The main thing on Yoku's Island Express, as far as the bosses go, that sticks out is something I wish that wasn't there. It's the final boss. But again, bosses are just they're a shorthand climax in video games. You do a good boss, and then you don't really have to put much effort into creating that moment of satisfaction that wraps up your game.
Also, they're a good like culmination to a tutorialization. Like, final exam, make sure you actually know what you're doing.
Or at least it's supposed to be, unless it's Elliot Quest. Then you could just put a crummy boss that should have been in the middle of the game at the end of the game.
Yeah.
It's getting late, guys. I'm starting to get snippy.
Eat a Snickers.
Eat a Snickers.
I think I'm finally about to beat this boss, though, so
Oh,
you might want to
so
wait
should we
like another few minutes.
Should we keep talking for a little bit so we can see what happens at the Mushroom Gentlemen's Club? Shroom
Sure.
Gentlemen's Club, that's what it was. I stayed at a hotel this week, and right next to my hotel there was like the library, the Gentlemen's Club. And I was like, why is this
Oh, the
billboard
library.
here? Like, there were two billboards for like, there was one for an adult bookstore and one for a gentleman's club. Which, you know, gentleman's club, it's just a library. It's a reading club, right? Is that what they do there?
What else do gentlemen do?
Super Smith, The Path of Neo. Yeah, that is, you know, in action movies, having a final boss is kind of the same thing as in a video game.
How else do you make the action climax?
I was in Ontario, California, by the way, or it was Colton, was where my hotel was. How else do you make an action game climax? There is no other way to make an action game climax. Well, you could do the Bioshock Infinite thing and have a bunch of waves of enemies, but that's kind of lame.
Well, there's also like the Ori escape sequences.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. The escape sequences did a good job of having a climax.
But that's just an environmental boss.
Yeah, it pretty much is. So it looks like you have to bait the mushroom hat and then dodge afterwards.
Yeah.
Like you just, yeah, right, like that. Yeah. So it dips only once.
It can dip twice.
Can it dip twice? I don't know. This is just not a very good boss. Of course, I haven't seen anything good when it comes to combat in this game. It's just kind of a mess.
I feel like pretty much every single like proto Metroidvania on the NES has some very glaring problems, but we wouldn't have gotten where we are now.
You are actually right. Well, those riding boots are going to make a huge difference, I think.
Oh yeah, this is the attempt where I like actually tried to use a bunch of items and
You got like spread shots and all that stuff. It's crazy.
yeah, really do much for me.
It doesn't look like it's damaging him. They really need to convey that better.
Yeah, I think that you have to shoot him to get him to throw the hat, and then while his hat's off, you can damage him.
Okay.
And you do not get very much ammo for this gun.
He does have a pattern. The conveyance is just crummy. Like if he made a sound every time you hit him, and there was better indication of how much damage you were doing to him. This boss could be serviceable. What's that?
Could be an emulation thing.
It could be. That's true.
You know how flashes are with emulated NES.
So how appropriate that our last subject for the night is talking about bosses, and we get to watch a crummy boss. So if your bosses are going to be like this, then your Metroidvania shouldn't have bosses. That's what I'm going to say.
So we're going to say that we don't think bosses are a required part of Metroidvania?
I don't think so. We should ask... So Future Suture is the one who's like super adamant that maps must be in Metroidvania games, otherwise they're not Metroidvania. I wonder how he feels about bosses.
I think he would prefer... I think he actually prefers the games that don't have as many bosses. Like, I think he's actually said that he dislikes bosses.
I know that he doesn't really care. Like when he played Hollow Knight, he considers, like when you get to the part with like the Pantheon and whatnot, he's like the Metroidvania part's over at that point.
Yeah, I agree with him there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just an optional mode.
And ironically, talking about whether or not bosses should be part of the Metroidvania definition, if Hollow Knight is over, or the Metroidvania part of Hollow Knight is over when you get to the part with the bosses, then clearly the bosses aren't a factor there.
Well, bosses are usually encountered, you know, like in a pacing consistent with like exploring an area,
Right.
finding new stuff, the whole thing. But that's not the case with Pantheon. Pantheon's just a bunch of bosses that you're fighting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I guess one of the things about Metroidvania is there's a lot of like integration between different things.
You could have a series of, you could have like a puzzle mini game, and you just do 10 of a specific type of puzzle, but like they wouldn't be Metroidvania puzzles, they're just puzzles because
right.
they're not integrated within the exploration pacing of the game.
Like if you had like Steven's sausage roll just like tacked onto the end of a Metroidvania.
Oh my god, I'd love to play a... But, sorry, off topic.
Sausage Rollvania. So Dr. Octorocket says the bosses give weight and context to ability getting, which I think is exactly right. Instead of just, I found this very important thing down this random hallway. What I was going to say is that usually a Metroidvania has to have some kind of primary challenge, aside from just the exploration. And then you don't even have to refer to it as the primary challenge. Like in the Metroid games, I don't consider the bosses the primary challenge. I consider the exploration the primary challenge of the Metroid games. But the bosses are an event that kind of bookends your experience. And I think that has nothing to do with it being a Metroidvania. That just has to do with it being a good game and good direction. And I don't think it has to be bosses for it to be a good game.
I will defeat Ridley with the power of friendship and this gun I found.
So, for quality reasons, I'm going to say it doesn't need to be there for quality reasons. You just have to replace it with something else. It's just one direction any Metroidvania can go. Like for instance, Dreaming Sarah is all about the metaphor of the backgrounds that you're exploring. That you can think about that. So the challenge there is thinking about what the metaphor is. And Lootbox Life, it's all about the platforming. So, all right, well, yeah, he beat the boss, so I guess that ends the stream.
We did
it. So next week, Master and Cauldrath and Itzero may do a Castlevania stream without me. Pay attention.
There's a chance. Etzero did not say yes. Do not.
No, I know. I'm just saying that this might be a possibility. I was about to say, watch the Our Metroidvania Discord and the Metroidvania Review Discord for more information if it's going to happen. Otherwise, next week may be a hiatus just because I'm traveling again. And I promise everyone that I most likely going to not be traveling again until probably mid-November, and then after that, not until January. So there will be a couple of months where I'm not traveling. But anyways, any final thoughts from everybody?
No.
All right. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.